to all. Today we will be discussing about the permanent tissues. Now, earlier we have discussed about the meristematic tissue. Alright. Now, what you have to remember this, that the permanent tissues are formed by division and differentiation of meristematic cells. Are you getting? Permanent tissues are formed by division and differentiation of the meristematic cells. Alright. Now, as you know very well that in meristematic tissue, in my previous video, we have discussed the primary meristem and the secondary meristem, right? That you have already studied. Now, primary meristem undergoes differentiation to form primary permanent tissue, and secondary meristem undergoes redifferentiation to form secondary permanent tissue. Secondary permanent tissue. So we can say it as that permanent tissues are also of two types: primary permanent tissue and secondary permanent tissue. Primary permanent tissue are formed by the differentiation of the primary meristem, and the secondary permanent tissues are formed by redifferentiation of the secondary meristem. Okay. Now, the cells formed by division of primary and secondary meristem, the cells which are formed by the division of the primary and the secondary meristem gets structurally and functionally specialized and lose the ability of division. Okay. These mature cells which lose the ability of division, these mature cells are called permanent cells. These mature cells are called permanent cells, which form permanent tissue, So these mature cells which have lost the power of division are called as the permanent cells, which form the permanent tissue. Alright. So this act which leads to maturation of the cells, the phenomenon which leads to maturation of the cell is called as differentiation. The phenomenon which leads which leads to maturation of cells. The phenomenon which leads to maturation of the cells, the phenomenon which leads to maturation of the cells is called differentiation. Alright, the phenomenon which leads to maturation of the cell is called as differentiation. Are you getting? So what I want to say, the cells which are formed by the division of the primary and the secondary meristem gets structurally and functionally specialized and lose the ability of the division. And when the cells lose the ability of division, they are converted into mature cells. So these mature cells are called as permanent cells, which forms the permanent tissue, and the phenomenon which leads to maturation of the cell is called as differentiation. Now, the permanent tissue forms the major organs in the plant body. Permanent tissue forms major organs in plant body. Are you getting? Permanent tissue forms major organs in the plant body. Okay, so this is permanent tissue. Now remember this thing, that the cells of permanent tissue, may be living or dead. You have to remember this thing. Alright, the cells of the permanent tissue may be living or dead. They may be living also, they may be dead also. When we will be discussing certain type of the permanent tissue, we will say you that which is living and which is dead. Say for if I talk about the simplest permanent tissue known as the parenchyma, so it is a living tissue. It has living cell. Parenchyma are living cells. But if I talk about the sclerenchymatous cells, then they are dead. Alright. So now let's talk about the another one, and that is that the permanent tissues are permanently, or the permanent tissue has permanently lost the power of division, or they have temporarily lost the power of division. So one thing to be noticed here is that people think that permanent tissue has been matured and it has lost the power of division. But it is not always true. This is not always true. It's not necessary that the permanent tissue cannot divide. The permanent tissue can also divide. Alright. So what we will write? We will write that permanent tissue has lost the power of division, temporarily or permanently. There are some permanent tissue which lose the power of division permanently, but there are some permanent tissue which can divide again. Alright, so this point to be noted here. But generally permanent tissue, it has been seen that permanent tissue lose power of division. Generally permanent tissue lose power of division. Alright, now if I talk about the classification of the permanent tissue, then the permanent tissue is classified into two categories. One is known as the simple permanent tissue and another is known as complex permanent tissue. Simple permanent tissue and complex permanent tissue. In this video, I will be discussing the simple permanent tissue. So now the question arises that why this permanent tissue is called as simple? So it is called as simple as it is made of only one type of cells. As it is made of one type of cells. It is called as simple as it is made of only one type of cell. That is, all cells are structurally and functionally similar. Means they are same in structure as well as they perform a common function. So the simple permanent tissue is called as simple as it is made up of only one type of the cells. But when we will be discussing the complex permanent tissue, we will say that complex permanent tissue is so called because it is made up of more than one type of cell. But here that it is made up of only one type of cells means all the cells are structurally and functionally similar. Alright. Now, if I go through the classification of the simple permanent tissue, then the simple permanent tissue is classified into three categories. Parenchyma, the next is Chlorine Chyma, and the third one is Chlorine Chyma. Are you getting? Simple permanent tissue is classified into how many categories? Parenchyma, Chlorine Chyma, Chlorine Chyma. Okay. So in this video we will be purely discussing on the Parenchyma, and in the next upcoming videos we will be discussing with the Chlorine Chyma as well as the Chlorine Chyma. So let's talk about the Parenchyma. It is very important tissue. Alright, very important tissue. So we'll be discussing the Parenchyma today. Now, Parenchyma is, remember, first differentiated tissue. That's why we are studying here in the permanent tissue at very first glance. First differentiated tissue. It is first differentiated tissue which is formed by the meristematic tissues. Alright. So Parenchyma is first differentiated tissue. Second point, it is most primitive tissue. Most primitive tissue means it has evolved first. And that's why it is called as most primitive tissue. Now, it is also called as most fundamental tissue. Or I can say why it is called as most fundamental tissue, or precursor of other tissues. That is, other tissues are formed by it, and hence it is called as the most fundamental tissue. So it is first differentiated tissue, most primitive tissue, most fundamental tissue. And remember this thing, that this Parenchyma is a living tissue. It is a living tissue. It is not a dead tissue, though it is a permanent tissue, but it is a living tissue. And cells of this tissue are thin-walled. The cells are made of the cell walls are made of pectocellulose. That is, they are made of pectin plus cellulose. Pectin plus cellulose is equal to pectocellulose. So cells of this tissue are thin-walled and the cell walls are made up of pectocellulose. Now if I talk about the shape of cells of the parenchyma, then shape of the cells may be spherical. The cells may be spherical, that is round, oval, elongated. Cells may be spherical, oval, elongated, or polygonal. And remember this thing, it is most abundant tissue. Abundant means found in too much quantity. It is most abundant tissue found in plants. Say for, I am actually quoting some examples which are made up of the parenchyma. Say for, if I talk about cortex, alright, alright, pericycle, with rays, alright, all are made up of the parenchyma. So it is the most abundant tissue. Now, very important, each cell of parenchyma has 14 facets, 14 corners. If you examine a parenchyma cell in the microscope, then each cell of the parenchyma has 14 facets, and that's why it is called as tetrachydecahedron. Each cell is called as, this is the technical term, biological term. Each cell of the parenchyma is having the 14 corners, 14 facets, 14 angles, and that's why it is called as tetrachydecahedron. Tetra means what? 4, and deca means what? 10. So tetrachydecahedron, 10 plus 4 is equal to, that will come out to be 14. Alright, so each cell of the parenchyma has how many facets, how many corners? It has 14 corners, and hence it is called as tetrachydecahedron. Now let's talk about some more characteristic feature of this tissue, which is called as the parenchyma. Now, if we talk about the parenchyma, then large vacuoles are present inside the cell. Inside parenchyma cell, a large vacuole is present. Alright, inside parenchyma cells, inside parenchyma cells, a large vacuole is present. Large vacuole is present. Inside the parenchyma cell, a large vacuole is present. Alright, and also cells maintain their protoplasm, which is living component, Also cells maintain their protoplasm, and hence, as I have said you, hence they are living. They are living just because they have maintained their protoplasm, though they have become mature. Also cells maintain their protoplasm even after maturation. So they are living. Alright. Now, cells have little cells have or I can say that cells are compactly packed. Cells are compactly packed, or they have intercellular spaces between them. Cells are either compactly packed or they have intercellular spaces between them. If they will be compactly packed, they will be seen to like this type. They will be seeming like this type. You can see that cells are compactly packed. But when intercellular spaces are there, so it seems to be like this type. These are intercellular spaces. Are you able to see? These are intercellular spaces. Alright. So the cells may be compactly packed or they may have intercellular space. Now, intercellular spaces are cytogenous in origin. Cytogenous in origin. Now, this is new term for you people, that what is cytogenous. The spaces which are formed by the separation of the cells. Spaces formed by separation. Spaces formed by separation of the cells is called as cytogenous. So I want to say that the intercellular spaces are cytogenous in origin. Intercellular spaces are cytogenous in origin. Are you getting? So these are the general features. These are the general features of the parenchyma. Now, if I talk about the types of parenchyma, then parenchyma are of various types. Say for the number 1 is Prosynchima. Maybe some parts are new for you people, so try to concentrate here. Prosynchima. The second one is Parenchyma, which is popular one. Third one is stellate parenchyma. Fourth one is Chlorine Chyma, not Choline Chyma, and the fifth one is mucilage parenchyma. Mucilage parenchyma. Are you getting? Again I am repeating. If I talk about the type of the parenchyma, then parenchyma are actually generally of 5 types: Prosynchima, Parenchyma, stellate parenchyma, Chlorine Chyma, and mucilage parenchyma. Alright, so let's talk about the first one, and that is known as the Prosynchima. Alright, so we are discussing the Prosynchima. First one is Prosynchima. Now, it is a type of parenchyma which is thick-walled. It is thick-walled parenchyma with long pointed ends. Are you getting? Prosynchima is a type of the parenchyma which is thick-walled with long pointed ends. And what is its function? It forms pericycle of root. Very important. Pericycle of root. Once a question was asked in the NEET that what is the function of the Prosynchima? It forms pericycle of roots. It provides strength. Are you getting? Now, number 2 is very, very important one. Parenchyma. Cells are round in shape. Here, the cells of parenchyma are round in shape. They surround air chambers. they surround air chambers filled with air. They surround air chambers. They are round in shape. And what is their prime function? They provide buoyancy to hydrophytic plants. They provide buoyancy to hydrophytic plants. They provide buoyancy to hydrophytic plants because of which they are able to float on surface of water. They are able to float on surface of water. So this is the second type of the parenchyma, known as the Parenchyma. Now third type, stellate parenchyma. Stellate parenchyma. Paren means air. Alright. Stellate parenchyma means cells of this parenchyma are star shaped. Right? They are star shaped. They are found in leaf bases of banana. They are found in leaf bases of banana. If you have seen the leaf bases of the banana leaf, then they are like this type. The leaf base of the banana leaf. This is the leaf base of the banana leaf. Right? So they are found in the leaf bases of the banana leaf, and they give mechanical support. They give mechanical support to base of banana leaf. They give mechanical support to base of banana leaf. So this is the third kind, known as the stellate parenchyma. Alright. So Prosynchima, Parenchyma and stellate parenchyma. Now coming to the fourth one, which is very, very important type of the parenchyma, and that is the Chlorine Chyma. That is the Chlorine Chyma. Chlorine Chyma, fourth type, Chlorine Chyma. Now, it is found in mesophyll cells of leaf. Mesophyll cell of leaf, and contain chloroplast. Are you getting? Chlorine Chyma is found in mesophyll cells of leaf and contain chloroplast. Say for this is the upper epidermis of the leaf. I am making a leaf section here, and this is the lower epidermis. And say for if this is the vascular bundle. Alright. So here in the leaves, mesophyll cells are found. And these mesophyll cells contain chloroplast. So these are what? The chloroplast. Alright. So Chlorine Chyma is found in the mesophyll cells of leaf and contain the chloroplast. What is the prime function of the Chlorine Chyma? The prime function of the Chlorine Chyma is that it performs photosynthesis. Why? Because it has chloroplast. So definitely it will perform photosynthesis. Alright. And the last type is the mucilage parenchyma. it consists of mucilage and store water. This type of the parenchyma contains mucilage and it stores water. Say for, if I talk about certain succulent xerophytes, then in them the mucilage parenchyma is found. Say for, you can call it as euphorbia, opentia, alright, opentia, aloe vera, right? If you see these plants, then they store the mucilage and they consist of mucilage and store water. Euphorbia, opentia, aloe vera, and that's why they are succulent, spongy xerophytes. Why? Because they store water. Alright. Now, these are the types of the parenchyma. Now, at last, if we talk about the functions of the parenchyma, what are the prime functions of the parenchyma? So, at last, we will be talking about the functions of the parenchyma. So, functions of parenchyma. So, first function is that parenchyma is chiefly concerned with storage. It is chiefly concerned with storage. It can be called as a food storage tissue. So prime function is that it is concerned with storage. It is also associated with photosynthesis. How? The chlorine chyma containing chloroplast perform photosynthesis. Are you getting? Chlorine chyma containing chloroplast perform photosynthesis. So another function is that photosynthesis. This tissue is also concerned with secretion. Also associated with, concerned with secretion. How? So to justify this statement, parenchyma consists of idioblast cells. Very important. Idioblast cells which secrete calcium oxalate, oils, tannins, etc. So they are concerned with storage, photosynthesis, secretion. Fourth point, parenchyma is also associated with wound healing. Means it can heal the wounds after injury. So it is also concerned with wound healing. Alright, and you have seen that in hydrophytic plants it provides buoyancy. In hydrophytic plants it provides buoyancy. In hydrophytic plants it provides buoyancy. and at some places you have also seen that though it is a living tissue, it may provide mechanical support. It may provide the mechanical support. So these are the prime functions of the parenchyma. Alright. So in today's video we have discussed that what is permanent tissue, how this permanent tissue is formed, and how many types of the permanent tissues are there. So we have discussed simple permanent tissue and complex permanent tissue. Simple permanent tissue was again of three types: parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. In this video we have discussed parenchyma. So in the next upcoming videos I will be discussing the collenchyma as well as the sclerenchyma. Don't miss the class, because my videos are totally based on content and quality. You will get the content, that I can promise you. So if you have liked the video, share this video, subscribe the channel and press the bell icon so that you can get the notifications at an appropriate time. Thanks a lot for watching me.